Hello and welcome back. Sean here, Mountains Garage, on a gray, overcast, kind of chilly day, but we dodged a snowstorm. Apparently down around Boston, maybe they're getting some snow. Up here in Maine, nothing. So today, I am degreeing in the camshaft on my DOT 440 LS project. Basically a cursive check to make sure all the numbers agree. Now, I promise you, sad but true, the majority of your general public LS parts are fortunately engineered behind the scenes because they don't expect your average sloppy mechanic guy with a DeWalt or M18 impact is gonna check anything. They're just gonna gun the thing together with used parts, put a Chinese turbo on it, and make 1,000 horsepower. But some people like to check what the cam card says you're supposed to have. So I'm gonna do a fast run through it with my semi-accurate tools. Again, this is amateur stuff. A professional would have, bear with me. Oh, bad TV. They'd have one of these and fancier gauges and everything else, but I own this. Instead, today, I'm right back to using the degree wheel that I bought at the swap meet when I was still a teenager. So, this is huge and big, but I ran into a problem. I have special sockets that locate on the keyway on the end of the crankshaft on a small and big block Chevy. And this hooks onto that through this hole, and then there's still a 1/2-inch square to turn the engine over. Well, that same socket for an LS engine comes two ways. One would slip over the oil pump drive because an LS doesn't have a keyway on the end of the crank. I have a keyway at the end of my crank. My balance is going to be keyed because I'm driving the oil pump off the balancer, so I have to have a keyway. Most all your aftermarket cranks come with the keyway. I've already installed it. I don't want to ruin the keyway getting it back out to run the OEM style socket that just goes over the oil pump drive. So they do sell a socket to go over the keyway, but I don't think it's probably worth the investment when this works. I'm just using a stock balancer bolt and a washer, and I actually impact the bolt on this, so as long as I go clockwise, so far it hasn't moved. I've checked this process several times. So for today, we're parking the big one and doing it old school. Sorry for going out of camera there. So what we're attempting to do is a few things. The cam card tells you when the events happen. I'm just on the intake side, the intake lobe right now for number 1 cylinder, and it tells you the intake's going to open at 9.5 degrees before top dead center, and it's going to start closing at 45.5 degrees after bottom dead center, and halfway between that is going to be our maximum lift times the rock around ratio is going to tell us the actual lift at the valve that we need to determine what I need for valve springs. So I'm going to basically do a few operations. Oh, and also checking top dead center, which you need to do to set the degree wheel. So, steps. Set up the yellow dial indicator. Roll it up to top dead center. You'll watch the piston dwell at the top. I try to split the dwell. It's a few degrees where the piston's just going to hang there. And set my pointer, my super accurate piece of MIG wire, on TDC. And the white dial indicator is a JEGS, super high tech, all professional engine builders have one, I'm sure. It's a camshaft checker. It tells you your actual lift at the lobe, and again, you have to multiply that times your rock around ratio, and that'll give you the lift at the valve, which everybody goes by when they're talking camshafts. If you got a 651.651 lift camshaft, that is what it means. So, but this gives you your event happening right here. So, let's go ahead and run through it. I'm at top dead center right now. Everything lines up. I should mention the events are measured at 50 thousandths lift. So I'm going to turn it when this one starts to move, or we're starting the event. I'm going to stop at 50 thousandths and read the degree wheel. So here we go. I got to go almost a whole turn before anything happens, because it says it starts to open at 9.5 degrees before top dead center. So we got to go all the way around to 9.5. So hang on. Here we go. I try to be smooth. Watching the white dial indicator, we're coming up on top dead center. We're going to watch it, see it starting to go. And I want to go to 50. So I'm going to go about here and start tapping. Read the degree wheel. 9.5 degrees. Exactly what it says. Now let's go to max lobe lift. We'll stop there. So I'm going to count. It's going to go about 380 something. Well, I'm going to count. We haven't even gone past 0 once yet. So there's 1, 2, 3, and I know it's going to go up around 80. About 83. So that's our max lobe lift. So 0.383. Remember that. Now we're going to go back to 50 on the downside. So I know I got to go 1, I'm watching this, 2, 3, and now we got to stop at 50. Just going to bump it from here because it goes fast. This motor turns real easy. Right there. 45.5 degrees. 45.5 degrees after bottom dead center. Now we'll just go back to top dead center. You can watch it dwell right about there. Top dead center. I do this several times because these will move a little bit. They're not exactly the best quality. However, I know, if you're within a degree or two, you're doing pretty well. This is reading almost exact. If things didn't read correctly, this Rollmaster chain set has, I don't know how many keyways on the bottom, but you can advance or retard the camshaft a lot. I installed it 0, hoping it was going to come out right. And it did. So that's done. I don't need to revisit that, but it's nice that I have the ability to move it. With a stock timing set, you're not going to be able to do that. But it's nice everything is accurate. Where does the difference come from? Well, it's a Chinese crankshaft machined here in America, I think. But the keyway could be off, which would affect everything. That's probably where the difference was come from. Interesting, on the back side of this crankshaft, they tell you the run out of the, it's got a 58 tooth reluctor wheel on it. They tell you the run out. When they checked, it was 14 after it got shipped, and I put it in and I put the dial indicator on it and rotated the engine. I was at 10 thousandths run out, so I lost 4 thousandths. Or there's a difference in how they measured it. So remember I told you to remember the max lobe lift at 0.383 thousandths. So when I bought my valve springs to go with this Lenati camshaft, this Lenati camshaft is a turbo camshaft, 651 intake and exhaust lift. And there's a whole bunch of other specs, but that is what we're talking about now. So 0.651 thousandths lift at the valve where the valve spring lives. So I'm going to hope you can see that. You can pause and focus, but I'll give you the information off it. When you're shopping for a valve spring, there's a few things you need to know. In this case, the installed height, that is when the spring is compressed and the retainer is put on and it's just sitting in the head on the bench or whatever, nothing's pushing on it. The spring installed height is 1.800 thousandths, 1.8. And at that installed height, if you were to put a valve spring pressure checker on it, the one with a handle, it would read 155 pounds, according to this. Maximum opening, or its comfortable operating range, is 1.125 inch and an eighth. So that's 675 thousandths allowable difference between installed height and the other end of its comfortable operating range. And if you checked it at full open, it'd be 420 pounds of spring pressure at the inch 125. So we got 675 thousandths comfortable operating window of this set of springs right here. And 651 thousandths lift camshaft, everything's okay. But when I bought these camshafts and the intended usage and everything that's figured here is on every other LS engine, including the LS3s on down, have a 1.7 rocker arm ratio. This is LS7, has a 1.8 ratio. That makes my lift 689 thousandths, slightly more than, call it almost 690 thousandths. So I am 15 thousandths over opening more in my comfortable window. However, they tell you coil bind is at 1.015. So the difference between the recommended operating range and coil bind is 110 thousandths. I'm only going to steal 15 thousandths of that by having more lift with a different ratio rocker arm. So I still have a comfortable window, right? 95 thousandths, is that correct? Yes, I still have 95 thousandths. I had to stop and do some math. Between my operating range and coil bind, and most valve spring manufacturers will tell you need a minimum of 0.060. So I still have 35 thousandths cushion there. So these springs will work, even though I had unintended consequences when I ended up building an engine with LS7 architecture. I also got the rear cover installed. My gaskets and O-rings showed up yesterday. These are the part numbers if you have an LSX cover. Hopefully you can pause and see that if you need to. The small O-ring goes around your galley plug seals, and then they just give you a length of 70 thousandths O-ring. It is O, not square, even though this has a square groove in it. And the only way to get it to stay is I ran clear silicone around it, just like Ilmor did. And I can see on the other block I just bought, it's still covered in clear silicone. And you can see the outline of where the cover was, probably this cover, to be honest with you, because it came from the same place, in the same basement. So in the future, just to have, I think I'll just go to McMaster Car or somebody and buy some 70 thousandths O-ring. It squishes easy. I'm going to measure it a few more times, but it's either 70 or 72 thousandths O-ring. Maybe I'll be able to find the spec, but that way I'd have a bunch of it if I ever had to pull the cover off. The rear main seal itself is traditional LS rear main seal, so at least that's not strange. It went on really nice, and now that I've checked the camshaft, I can go ahead and install my front cover. Hopefully that is a stock, Gen 4 style with the cam sensor in the cover. Hopefully that bolts right on. We'll see. I do have a double roller timing chain. That potentially could hit, but we'll see. Usually that clearance, you need clearance on the block, not on the timing cover. So I'll tell you in the next video whether I managed to get the front cover on, and I can also double check my oil pan and see if I can attach that as well. I bought an oil pan stud kit. This block doesn't have all the bolt holes drilled, but I'm hoping the stock gasket works. That's another problem for another day. So when you're dealing with things that are out of the realm of ordinary, which is the MO of my life, I'll always get something just a little bit weird. But hey, none of this stuff is hard. In this case, last time I degreed in a camshaft was over a year ago. But that stupid little degree wheel to Moroso that I bought at the swap meet, the instructions are even written on it. So it's not hard. And if you slow down and listen to what I say, you can do it yourself with some relatively inexpensive tools. But now I have the peace of mind knowing that at least the camshaft is installed as the manufacturer intended. So that's it for today. Take her easy.